The Art of Witchcraft is a story within the collection of classical Chinese short stories. Titled Strange Stories from a Chinese Studio, by the Qing Dynasty writer, Pu Songling. It vividly and elaborately narrates the tale of Yu Gong's battle with supernatural beings. There was a man named Yu Gong, who in his youth was known for his chivalrous deeds and martial skills. He was skilled in boxing and martial arts, possessing great strength that allowed him to effortlessly lift high-legged teapots and spin them around like a whirlwind. During the Chongzhen era of the Ming Dynasty, he participated in the imperial examination in the capital city. He was deeply concerned as his servant fell ill and remained bedridden. Coincidentally, there was a skilled fortune teller at the local market who could predict people's life and death. Yu Gong decided to consult him regarding his servant's condition. When Yu Gong approached the fortune teller, even before he could speak, the fortune teller said, "Are you here to inquire about your servant's illness?" Astonished, Yu Gong nodded in agreement. The fortune teller continued, "The patient will recover, but you are in danger." Yu Gong then requested the fortune teller to perform a divination for himself. After casting the divination, the fortune teller shocked Yu Gong by stating, "You will die within 3 days." Yu Gong was left bewildered by this prediction. The fortune teller calmly mentioned, "I possess a minor magical technique. Give me 10 taels of silver, and I can help you avert this calamity." Yu Gong pondered that life and death were predestined and wondered how a minor magical technique could alter it. He declined the offer and started to leave. The fortune teller warned, "Don't be stingy with this little money. Don't regret it." Those who cared for Yu Gong worried about him, urging him to give all his money to the fortune teller to save himself. But Yu Gong didn't heed their advice. As the third day approached, Yu Gong sat calmly in an inn, observing his surroundings attentively. Throughout the entire day, nothing unexpected occurred. As night fell, he closed the door, lit a lamp, and sat with his sword, prepared for whatever might transpire. Midnight came and went, yet there were no signs of his impending death. He considered lying down to sleep. Suddenly, he heard faint rustling sounds through the window slit. He hurriedly looked, and saw a small figure entering, carrying a spear and a halberd on its shoulder. Upon landing, it transformed to the size of an ordinary person. Yu Gong drew his sword and attempted to strike the figure, but it eluded his blows. The figure rapidly shrank and attempted to escape through the window. Yu Gong swiftly swung his sword, causing the figure to fall. Illuminated by the lamp, he discovered it was a paper figure, cut in two at the waist. Unable to sleep, Yu Gong remained seated, waiting. After a while, a monstrous creature entered through the window, its appearance as terrifying as a ghost's. As it landed, Yu Gong immediately attacked, cutting it into 2 pieces that wriggled on the floor. Fearing it might rise again, Yu Gong struck it repeatedly, each blow landing accurately. The sounds it produced weren't like those of soft flesh. Upon closer examination, he realized it was a clay puppet, shattering into pieces. Yu Gong then moved to a spot near the window, his eyes fixed on the window slit. After a considerable amount of time, he heard heavy breathing outside, and a creature pushed against the window frame. The room's walls shook, seemingly on the verge of collapse. Fearful of being crushed against the wall, Yu Gong calculated that confronting the creature outside was better than staying indoors. He abruptly opened the door and fled outside. He encountered a giant ghost, as tall as the eaves of a house. In the dim moonlight, its face was as black as coal, with gleaming yellow eyes. Its upper body was bare, its feet were shoeless, it held a bow, and arrows were strapped to its waist. Yu Gong was astonished when the ghost suddenly bent its bow and shot an arrow. He deflected it with his sword, causing the arrow to land on the ground. As he prepared to attack the ghost, it shot another arrow, prompting Yu Gong to leap and avoid it. The arrow pierced through the wall with a cracking sound. Enraged, the ghost drew its dagger and swung it with great force. Yu Gong leaped forward like a monkey, causing the dagger to strike a stone in the courtyard, which immediately shattered. Seizing the opportunity, Yu Gong maneuvered between the ghost's legs, striking its ankles with his sword, and producing a resounding sound. The ghost grew angrier, its roar resembling thunder, and it turned around to strike Yu Gong. Yu Gong swiftly dodged by diving forward, causing the ghost's blade to cleave a portion of his robe. In the meantime, Yu Gong had already reached the ghost's ribs, and his sword strikes resounded, causing the ghost to collapse motionless on the ground. Yu Gong continued to slash wildly with his sword, the sound resembling the splitting of wood. When illuminated by the lamp, he realized it was a wooden puppet, as tall as an ordinary person. A bow and arrow were still attached to its waist, its terrifying facial features carved into its mask. Wherever struck by Yu Gong's sword, blood flowed out. Fearing the potential return of more ghostly entities, Yu Gong held a candle and awaited the break of dawn. He then comprehended that these supernatural entities were dispatched by the fortune teller, who sought to prove the miraculous nature of his divination by attempting to kill people. The following day, Yu Gong informed all his friends and arranged to visit the fortune teller's residence together. When the fortune teller saw Yu Gong from a distance, he disappeared in an instant. Some suggested that the fortune teller was using invisibility magic and that it could be broken with dog's blood. Following their advice, Yu Gong returned after preparing with dog's blood. The fortune teller vanished once again, just as before. In haste, Yu Gong poured dog's blood on the spot where the fortune teller had stood. As a result, the fortune teller's head and face were smeared with dog's blood, and his eyes flickered like those of a ghost. Consequently, Yu Gong apprehended him and brought him to the authorities, where he was executed. The historian remarks, "I used to consider spending money on divination foolish behavior. How many people in the world are capable of discussing divination, accurately predicting the limits of life and death? Inaccurate divination is no different from not divining at all. Moreover, even if someone clearly tells me that my time of death is approaching, what can I possibly do? Furthermore, using others' lives to demonstrate the miraculousness of divination is particularly terrifying."